I got it. Okay.
Hello there, Heike. Lovely to have a chat with you. And
Nice to meet you.
yeah, we're actually only meeting the first time. You sent a beautiful recording of the description of your realization only a few weeks ago, and it's just been great in the way you describe the process. But you and I actually only communicated once before, which was just a brief email. But it would be really nice for you to just relate your story to people, really.
Okay, I will do that.
Thank you.
So when we start, should I start then with my childhood?
Yeah, start because some of the things in our conversation before we started recording were quite interesting in the feelings you had when you were very young. So starting around about the time of your first memories, really.
Okay, so well, I have to say my mother, I was unwanted. My mother never wanted me. And so I came with that feeling here that I was not wanted. And she also frequently said to me always when I did something was too wild, we never wanted you and how you behave. And at one point I remember that I said to her, look, I'm here now and I cannot go back. And I tried to look, I was looking at my mother and I was thinking, okay, I'm not fitting through her anymore to go back to her body. So where I came from, I'm too big now. And so I don't know where to go. And so I was constantly looking outside in nature. There would be a big hole and that I could go back where I came from. So I loved going to the forest or outside, and I still always were looking for that magically big hole that I could go back where I came from. Right. And I wasn't finding it, and I was tortured by that constantly, my mother telling me I'm not wanted. And so then I remember I took a little suitcase and I packed it up with my things and I wandered off, and I didn't go far. And then I was crying and somebody found me and said, what you doing? I said, I'm going to the forest and I will live there. And he said, well, you're too little, you cannot live by yourself. And I was screaming at him, I'm doing it. And anyway, I sent it home. I got home again, and my mother was I can remember that she was kind of laughing, that where you going and you cannot go anywhere. And I said, I want to go home. I want to kill myself. And she was still laughing. And I was, I think, in the third floor. And I was thinking about it, jumping out of the window, because that family wasn't any good for me. I was thinking, somehow my ego structure quickly decided, somehow in such a little child's head, decided these parents are dysfunctional and you are totally alone here and you have to be, so that structure became very big right away to protecting and to, it took on, actually in psychology, there's a term, when I parroting myself.
Yes.
I started to parroting myself because I wasn't listened anymore what these people said. I was sure these are dysfunctional. We don't go anywhere with them. So inside I had something growing into me. I couldn't describe it there. Now I understand, but it was parenting me and telling me what is right and what should I do and what should I do. So everything got really chaotic in that family and I wasn't feeling happy there. And so I was times that I didn't talk to them. Then I remember that I felt like isolated, totally isolated. So, and I was constantly on that feeling, please God, take me home. And this is where I also started. And I don't know where I heard that, maybe in a radio show or something, when I probably was like 7 7 or 8 years, that you can leave your body somehow. And so I tried to lie down in my bed and think I'm going somewhere, So I tried to go out of my body very easily, but I had some experience with that. And then also I was feeling what other people feeling and saying what came out. And I was a child, and I said, when my mother was in conversation with other people and the people were saying something, but I felt something totally different coming from them. I said, Mama, they're lying. It's not true what they're saying, And my mother then, oh my God, So, and she said, you stop that. And so she punished me when I was telling her what I feel and what I'm seeing. She punished me and said, when you not stop that stupid stuff, you will go in a mental hospital where people will be locked up, and you will not come out anymore when you not stop that. So I was punished for being open.
Wow.
And so that was really kind of hard for me to hear, because we had a mentally retarded uncle, and he was occasionally sent somewhere, and so I was scared with that one.
Yes.
So I stopped then my sensitivity and basically grown in my own world, and I was in a family, but it wasn't really, nothing was really accepted, and I wanted to check out. So I basically, everything was dysfunctional. And in my teenage years, then I really also tried to pop pills and see maybe I could check out with that. And I really never overdosed, but at least I found I came in a Zoom with that pills that I took. And that really wasn't my feeling either. So, and then I was feeling, okay, so maybe then when this family isn't good, maybe then you look for a group outside where you feel like, you find yourself in a group.
Yes.
And so I tried to experimenting with other groups, and it wasn't it either.
No. Well, it's very common among the people I speak with to have the experiences that you describe. Firstly, a feeling of not belonging on planet Earth, and also not belonging in the family that they're born into, feeling an outsider. And so for you as a little girl, that would have been a very challenging experience. But the people I speak with, that's so common. That's really that's true of most people I have a conversation with.
So they didn't want to be here on planet Earth.
Yes, because my intuition is that people such as yourself have come here to assist in the transformation in consciousness that's taking place, and so you're not actually native to planet Earth, and that feeling has been with you probably all of your life. And even, as you described the experience you had when your mum was having that conversation, you knew intuitively, you had this intuition that those people were fibbing, and your mum wasn't aware of it, but because you had that sensitivity, you knew that that's what was going on. But your mum couldn't relate to that because she was just taking it on face value.
Yeah.
But lots of the things that you describe, are real gifts, but as a child, you don't recognize them in that way.
And interesting enough, I have to go back there. When I probably was around, I would say between 7 and 9, I was asking my mother, so, what is life all about? And she said, well, we find a good job, and then we find a man, and then we make babies, we get babies, and then you go on a nice vacation, and it sounded very horrible for me. And I said to her, I hang myself right away. because that didn't feel, I expected a deeper answer. What is
Yes.
life all about? And here
Yeah.
she telling me all that things that didn't really make sense for me, and I didn't really want them,
No.
So I said, well, I don't want a job, and she said, well, you have to work, and then she said, well, then you want to have a man, you have to make you nice looking, and I was always said, oh, I want to not do that. So this really was interesting with that age that I found that so horrible.
Yes. And that was your intuition really telling you that the sort of conventional and mundane version of human life wasn't for you.
Yeah, and also every time I remember, she was asking me, well, what would you like to do when you, or what is your dream? And I told her I want to be a seer. And then I said, my mother said, you cannot be a seer because you have to be born with that. And you are not born with that. So, and here we are again, so she asking me a question, what I want to be, or what would you like to do? So, and here it comes with that. For her, was it like an abstract thing again, seer, and okay. So that dream was taken away right away from her too. Instead, helping me maybe on a way that would fit to something, what kind of what I enjoy.
Yes.
And
yeah.
it wasn't on her radar. It was too far out for her.
So you did remarkably well to just survive, really, in those early years. That was amazing. That was an amazing onslaught.
Yes, I remember when I think that I got my own room upstairs, and I was I think I was around 12 years old. And I looked out of the window, and I was still thinking maybe I should jump out of that window, Wow. And then there was like a voice came to me, and not really talking, but something into my mind, and said, no, this was like a big feeling also. You cannot jump, it's you cannot do that. And so interesting enough that voice was familiar to me, that just when I was around probably 3 or 4, when I still could go back to the openness of that feeling of really to be free. Yes. And I could see the ego structure forming, and I could jump in and out.
Brilliant.
And they were my friends. So I talked to that friends, or they were there, and they're explaining life to me. And then they're telling me, well, on one point, we will be not here, but we will be here, but I will be closed off. And I was very angry. I said, well, when you're leaving, then nobody is be there. So, and I couldn't understand what was going on, but it was an important thing because I couldn't stay open like that.
Yes. So they were your guides, I guess, were they?
Yes, they were. And then I remember then my family and how you go in and they give you chocolate and money and all that. And then I could go back to that open space, that I felt better there. And here was the other. But this was closing up very soon. And then when I was 12 years old and I wanted to think about jumping out of that window, there it came back to me. And I said, you're back. So, but it wasn't back because I couldn't really communicate in that way.
But they were still protecting you.
Yes. And then I started doing that stuff that I probably heard on the radio, some spiritual things also, that you can go out of your body. And here again, I listened to something, I listened to something, I don't remember, but I was lying in my bed, tried that again and tried to get out of the body. And I did somehow, I came to a level of, I don't know, maybe it's but it felt like aliens, I don't know, it felt aliens tried to take me away in that stage where I was,
Yes.
because I was praying for it. And then another voice came, said, they cannot, when you resist, when you say no,
Yes.
no, they can't do it.
That's
so
true.
I listened to that, and somehow I came back to my body, but it was so scary for me that I didn't do that then anymore, because I didn't expect something could have been happening. But that was.
But it was really good that you had that that guidance really to do with your sovereignty, because that is the case, that we remain as the sovereign being. So it's only by consent that we can, you know, accept or decline any kind of experience, really. You know, lots of things in the world make it seem as though we don't have that ability, but that is true, that we can decline them, because we remain as a sovereign being. The human experience is only a little excursion, whereas we remain as the infinite being. So the infinite being is actually all powerful.
And interesting enough, it stayed with me in my life. And then later, I mean, when I became a teenager, and then, I went to, with 18 or 19, I went to Berlin from a small town. I went to a big city, Berlin. And basically living in Berlin, I tried every kind of group. I tried every kind of drug. But interesting enough, no drug that I took stick with me. And all my friends, they were alcoholics. They were heavily on drugs, and they couldn't get off. And I tried things, and it didn't stick. And I get some kind of a reaction, and then I said, that's not for me.
Well, that's a really good sign. That just shows the power of your consciousness, that, you know, it's a bit like the Indian saints, you know, they can drink poison and it doesn't affect them. That's true in terms of your consciousness, really, that you took those drugs and they didn't really register with you.
No, and then I get a bad reaction from it, or I took LSD and I got a bad trip, and I said, not what I'm doing again. And so interesting enough, I tried it. I wanted to fit in it. I wanted to be like them. I wanted to be an alcoholic, but I couldn't be an alcoholic. So it seems like it. I wanted to belong somewhere, and even
if it means being an alcoholic.
Interesting enough, because they were drinking, so you want to be part of that. And I was a punk, you know, in the punk time, and everything. So I wanted to be like them, also drink there, and it didn't stick. So, you know, interesting enough. And then later, when I kind of moved out of there, I kind of lived with a lot of craziness there, and people took homes there, you know, in the time where people got in the homes, 30 people, and they never left for a couple of years. And so I lived there for a while, and then I moved to another apartment, and I found my way again. And something seemed like I become kind of normal. And then there was a voice coming through, and some change should have been happening. And I said, look, God, I need another 2 years. I need another 2 years. And interesting enough, 2 years were going by, and I did what I did, you know. And then after the 2 years, my disc came out. I got screwed up back, and I couldn't move and anything. And I didn't want to do an operation, and I find alternative help. And so I was in pain for quite a long time. And then a friend, or I don't know how I got to her, she introduced me to yoga. So I got into yoga, and somehow that helped my whole body. So, and this is where I started the mind. Some changes happened with consciousness, and I got into yoga and what it means. And this was basically after the 2 years. So it came a shift.
Well, yoga is very beneficial, because
Oh, yeah.
Lots of things that people process with the mind, because sometimes there can be stressful experiences or unpleasant emotions and things which sometimes people address and process them with the mind, but actually the mind and body are interdependent, so we can actually process things much more comfortably through things like yoga, because the process of integration is achieved through physical activity rather than mental activity. So,
Yes.
if people have a hangover, for instance, most people process the hangover mentally. So they're feeling frustrated, they're feeling, the low frequency emotions. But actually, if they did some yoga, they could process them physically and they wouldn't have to go through that turmoil.
Yeah, and that helped. And it changed my whole life. This is where it all, this is then where it started to surge extremely. I mean, people were asking me when I didn't have that, with that I couldn't explain. And they were always asking me, what do you want out of life? And I was saying to them, this was my explanation. I want to go back when I was a child, not childish, but the place where everything was open and good,
Yes.
and you were free. And I couldn't explain that. And then when I came to yoga, for me it was then enlightenment. So they were talking about enlightenment, and I had no clue what is enlightenment. I had simply thinking was the Big Bang maybe, and something shifted, and I got falling away all my horrible life, and I getting better, and then I was thinking, well, but I saw this Buddha sitting around, and then I was thinking, well, then I have to sit around like that. I don't want it either. So I had some kind of interesting ideas what I'm looking. So, but I was thinking, that's the right thing. I'm going for enlightenment.
Yes.
And
so
then
were you in your 20s at this stage, Heike?
Yes. I was in my 20s, early 20s. And then a time of extreme yoga started. I did a lot of yoga, and I was getting up 5 o'clock in the morning, 2 hours yogas, meditation. Then later in the day, this is what the yoga procedure was, and I found Shivananda yoga. And so I totally followed what they recommended, and my life became, in a way, so extreme structured. It's so no fun anymore. And I was a vegan, and I mean, I couldn't go somewhere in a restaurant anymore because nobody really in that time was prepared for vegan or vegetarian. When you were going, they said, oh yeah, I don't eat meat. And they said, oh, bring you some fish. No, that's still meat,
Yes.
So they understand it. So anyway, and that was very extreme. And but this is where I felt a shift, and also felt something opened up, and I was in the open heart space, and it was wonderful. And then I went to India for 2 or 3 months, and I was in an ashram there, and things got more extreme. And after that, I invited a priest to come. He wanted to go to Europe and probably opened up a center. That all happened, and so a lot of things in me changed. And then I could feel also something was when I did meditation, and when I did no meditation, I was eating and falling in a trance.
Wow.
I felt in a trance. I was eating and fell whoop away. And I said, well, I got some problems. And when I did my asanas, and there was all kinds of colors there, and there was a being, it was in purple. And I said, well, something is going on. And they didn't describe it in the books, So I went in the center of Shivananda, and I was asking and said, well, I don't know what's happening. And I said, well, and they said, this is cities or what they call
Yes.
it. And they happening, but you not concentrate on that, you go further. And I said, well, how could I not concentrate on that when I cannot have my normal life back, you know? So it doesn't felt right. The answer wasn't what I was looking for. And I didn't get the answer. So I totally quit yoga. I had friends, they were still yoga teacher. I never made it. I didn't want to be a yoga teacher. And anyway, I was so sensitive. I could read things, you know. We were together and he gave me a shirt and I said, no, I cannot take that shirt. And I told him what happened in that shirt. And that was really what happened in that shirt. So everything became so extreme and I felt like, oh my God, and nobody can give me an answer.
Yes.
And
so
then,
because all the sensitivity there as a child, did that return following the yoga?
it seems like it, you know, but in a totally new level, you know.
Yes.
How could you have a life when you're falling in a trance? How could you do? I mean, you know, when you eat and then all of a sudden you're falling, it wasn't, something was going on and I needed help, but I didn't get the help. So I found a shaman woman and I went with her group and she said, well, you two, way too sensitive. We have to get you grounded, you know. So, and they got me grounded and I was very kind of into all the shaman thing. And she gave me some exercise and it got better, I have to say. And she always said, you want to fly off without your roots, you know. So this is not how that works. And then I remember a time, so that helped a lot. And then I moved away to another, I mean, Berlin became one then. So the East was, the West, East and West was one.
Yes.
So I moved to another area then. And I had a dog for 13 years and it was very helpful too. That gave me a little grounding too. You have to go out with the dog and everything. But still, all with the shaman things, I was very sensitive. And I remember a time then I went to the new area and I went with my dog out and all of a sudden I felt like something hit me, but nothing in that world hit me. I looked around. There was nobody around, only me and the dog on the street and something. All of a sudden, I felt like boom. And I was in a different lifetime.
Wow.
I was in a different lifetime. And all of a sudden, I said, it cannot be. I'm here with my dog. I'm here on that street and looked at the street name. And all of a sudden, I'm involved in something totally different. And that was very scary. And I was holding on to the dog there on the leash. And so I was in that moment thinking, oh my God, you know, what happened when something did bring me somewhere away, you know, maybe this is where my mother, this with that thing came in. When they bring me away or something happens, I cannot explain what happened. So it was a very strange situation. And I was very open again and saw different lifetimes.
Yes.
So basically some different lives happened in the same time I was in this life. So it was unexplainable what's happened. Anyway, when I was at home, in my home, I was thinking maybe it's because that was a different area I lived. And I said, maybe it's something energetically or something is not right. I was lying in my bed. All of a sudden, it got so light and the light turned on in my room, you know.
Wow.
And a lot of things is flying around there, little lights and everywhere. And I said, oh God, that this must be now I'm going totally crazy. And I took the book of Ramana Maharishi, hold it on and said, so this cannot be, so things are a lot of things. Then I tried not to get crazy and scared. So I was holding the book and said, okay, that's okay. When things are happening, maybe that is what's happening now.
Yes.
So I tried to be okay with that. And well, that was a time. It passed on again, so things got a little smoother. And but somehow I was very open.
Yes.
And I couldn't work for 1 year. I got money from the government. I was in Germany, and I was not functioning in a way properly how people normally go to work and do things, because it's through all that things that happening, I wasn't able.
So were you experiencing different lifetimes quite frequently, or did that just happen on a couple of occasions?
Oh, I did this for quite some. I could, whenever I wanted, I could experience different lifetimes. I had to sit.
That's amazing.
I had to sit down, and I mean, in that year, what I didn't work, I did a lot of meditation. I sit down. I had lifetimes with Aboriginals, and they were all of a sudden, I was walking for hours in a circle with them, and in my house where I lived, and but we were talking, and they were happy, and we had connection, and but in the same time, it was a different. They were in the house, but they were not in the house. So
Yes.
it was a different way. And so whenever I wanted to go to a different lifetime, I could go like that.
Brilliant.
And,
did you see that all the lifetimes are superimposed on this one time, this moment? Did that become apparent?
What do you mean?
Well, because actually there is no time. We just rest as the infinite being, as the timeless presence. Then time is only phenomenal, and all the lifetimes are actually only existing here simultaneously, really, because we never go anywhere. We're totally stationary. Yeah,
this is what I experienced.
Fantastic.
Yes, and then I also could transfer that power to my sister. She had some problems, and I said to her, well, don't worry, she said something about she isn't sure, she must have different lifetimes. I said, okay, you will. And I told her it will happen to you. And it happened. She called me 2 days later and said, oh my God, you cannot believe what's happening.
Wow.
I felt in a different lifetime, and I was that and that. And I said, And it was interesting. She was all up, and something shifted then for her, and it helped her.
Good.
And then she moved to a new house with her husband, and I think she had just got the baby, and the baby was crying every night. And I said to her, well, you probably have some ghosts living in your house. And so I didn't want to scare her, but I came and visit her.
Mm-hmm.
And then I did the shamanic work, and I came with in the shamanism, they teach you a little things. And so I came over to her, and the second night, that ghost came into my dream.
Yes.
And so I said, look, you should go where you go, and with your wife, and you are not living anymore here. So I made a little ceremony with him because it woke me up at 2 a.m. So and then all of a sudden, everything, they felt better in the house. The baby was sleeping, no more crying. And I told her, you had a ghost and it's now gone. And she then, in another night, she said she woke also up and she saw all of a sudden the sky opened and this man, or it was a man, popped. There was something going through the sky and was gone.
Yes.
And interesting. Yeah, and with my other sister too, she had a boyfriend died and she was crying and she said she wants to kill herself now too. He had an accident or something, and I said, well, don't kill yourself right now. So calm down, and he is still here. Let's make a candle on, and I give her all the things what she should do and talk to him. And the same for her too. She said she was outside on the balcony. All of a sudden she saw in the sky, and this is like something opened up and zoomed something away. And she didn't feel that urge anymore to kill herself. She was in peace.
Brilliant.
So, and I don't know what happened or how could I give that to her, that it worked for her. But that was a time very extreme for me. And,
well, with family members, we do have the ability to communicate on compatible frequencies. And so, you know, you're able to share that with your sisters. But the, you know, the different koshas, the physical body, the etheric or emotional body, the mental body, the causal body, and the body of bliss, you know, they're always available to us. But depending on the tendencies we have, we can feel as though we're limited by those when actually we never are. But, you know, for instance, if there are, you know, ghosts, people talk about ghosts, that's actually the etheric level. So it's when people, it's quite often when there's attachment to the physical, and then when the physical body comes to an end, then the etheric remains, but the attachment, you know, so the attachment is there on the etheric, so they then don't move up through the astral and causal realms and return home. And so that's something that's worth developing, you know, the ability to function.
Well, I have to say, I still doing, I mean, I do it since ever now. Every time I see when on the road a killed animal or something, I say my little prayers, and I somehow in the middle of it, I see the light and I send them off and I tell them they died. And so I don't know, doing that always, you know, Brilliant. It's never,
yeah, that's a gift.
Yeah, because I thank them because I don't want them to hang here and they don't know where they are, and
yes,
then in the moment they can go.
Yes, well, that is the guidance, because if there's familiarity with the more subtle realms, then that familiarity can be shared. And so that's really, you know, that's one of the ways that realization happens, when there's a sharing.
Well, that's why I also enjoy doing hospice, you know, when I'm not constantly doing hospice anymore because I have a lot, well, they will die, but when you're with a person that's in the dying process, I feel very familiar, I feel very home, I feel my heart is open, and I feel actually enjoying that.
Yes. Well, that just shows that that's your role, and it comes very easily to you, and your intuition is telling you that that's where you should be, really.
Well, yeah.
So it's great that you can facilitate that for people.
Well, go back to that time. Then after all that time happened, I went back to a total normal life. And I felt like I'm totally closed up and I totally have no access to that anymore, because then I worked and I had, you're busy with working, and you have dealing with other things and problems, and so yeah, and that was gone for a long time. And then I always was still running for enlightenment.
Mhm.
um
How many years ago would this be?
Well, that was in my 20s. It was when that happens. The first awakening that happened in my 20s. And this is then where I couldn't be anymore then, because I felt like there's something else.
Mhm.
I couldn't stay there, and I didn't have a teacher, and I didn't have anybody telling me what is really going on. And so, and then I had it, then I had again that I felt, oh, we are not that body. And this was also, I think, in my 20s, and I was in a job, and I couldn't explain to other people, but I was thinking they were feeling or seeing the same thing. And I was saying to my boss, well, he had some problems. He said, you're not the body. And they couldn't understand what I'm telling them, and I was happily going along with all that. But people, so it didn't make any sense for anybody. And me either. I said, oh God, so yes. And then back to my normal life then. And then I was in my 30s. I moved over to America, and
Yes.
it wasn't a plan either. I went on a spiritual retreat, and this is where I met my ex-husband. And yes, but it was constantly the search and the spirituality
Yes.
was involved, and
Yes.
searching, and tons of explanations. What could I do? And workshops. And I mean, I spent so much money on that. And I mean, from different shamans, and trying to heal from something, mass puking, they're giving you some kind of herbs there. I mean,
Yes.
it was crazy. And then I always just recently I gave up my storage, and I was always thinking, what is my purpose here in life? What is my purpose? People have an interest. I don't have an interest in something. And then I look at all my books, and they were all spirituality, searching, enlightenment. I said, well, there you are, what you wanted to do in life. This is what you were running for. And but also I was running for something that didn't have you can physically not touch it, so
Yes.
so it made it for me less valuable. So because other people have something, become a millionaire and then work and get that.
Yes.
So yes, and just happened in the beginning of the year when I set the storage and seeing all the things, and I said, wow, that is your thing. And
Yes.
that search that became then so extreme parts in my life, and then I tried to get it. The mind trying to get it,
Yes.
so to get
what sort of things were you looking at that time, Heike?
Well, I had several different teachers. I looked into the Enneagram. I went with Eli Jackson Beer, and then Gangaji, and then there was another teacher over in Canada. I lived for a short time over there. Everything. I mean, I from shaman to all kinds of healing methods, Reiki, and all that, and then basically Ramana Maharishi. That is just always. I mean, that was where I found the most home.
Yes. You've been familiar with Ramana for quite a few years, hadn't you? You mentioned the book quite a long time ago.
I was very familiar with him for a long time, and this is what was always for me where I was going back to it,
Yeah.
So and then after all that, I said I have enough with all that searching and with going to teachers, and looking for a teacher, and maybe they can transfer it to me, and like that ideas. And so when that all stopped, and I gotten back to the roots of teaching of Brahmana and listened a lot of to Muji, and that was it. And for me, I said, I don't need a teacher anymore, and
Good.
And follow my heart, and looking all the YouTube and conscious TV, and listened to you too, and all that things. And then it became, I think it was at the end of December when it became extreme for me, that I said, I really want to get it. There's something it needs to be. And then that idea had, it needs to be an experience. And, but this experience, so my mind made up, you need to have an experience, but it's not an experience. And that was the last trick, then, that experience. And I watched your videos, and then we had communicated, and you said, watch the doshas, or what is it, the 5?
Yes, the koshas.
Koshas. And that was, my mind tried to figure things out and all that. And this is where I got so extreme, and I cannot take it anymore. I have to get it from my mind. And then all of a sudden, it is almost, I gave all that stuff up. It just was too much, because this is like, I said to myself, and when I have to listen 8 hours a day to everything, I wanted to know, I want to experience. And then all of a sudden, it came to me, that is not an experience. This is not, you don't look for an experience.
Wonderful.
And this is where I felt that search came to an end. It was on 31 of January, where I made that little heart in my calendar and wrote down change.
Yes.
A change happened.
Yes.
All in the moment where that search fall off. And I was an extreme search, I have to say.
Yes. Yeah.
When that search fall off, all of a sudden there was this huge space in me. And what's now? Mind was saying, well, what's now? It was kind of unfamiliar with that open space. And I didn't want to touch it. And I said, well, feel in, what is it? How does it feel? Don't listen to the mind right now. So how does it? And it was a wonderful openness, and there was nothing in there. And it's like felt like a huge container, an empty container where I had all these years, all that things in it. And I see my mind and see the mind. It's almost like, check, we got that. It's on the list, always the first on my list was enlightenment, and then make millions. And so the mind said right away, we're going to the millions now, so. And I could see that it's like a search engine, like a computer.
Yes. Yeah.
It's a computer.
Exactly, yes.
It's nothing else than, you can use it. You can use things to become what you really want, but it is like a computer.
Yes.
So and that felt so freeing. I have to go back to that a little bit. Before I had this freeing, I made this experience when I was listening to a medium. He lives somewhere in the US, and he talks to the people they left and gone to the other side.
Yes.
And he is, he's phenomenal what he's doing. And anyway, I experienced, when I was listening, I got a really a physical experience that, wow, I hear that before from my experience. We are not the body. Somehow that came back to me a little deeper. So we are not the body, and it was somehow it shook me off again, and settled in deeper. But I still wasn't free because my mind was still looking for the enlightenment and the experience, you know.
Yeah.
So that was before that happening, but it couldn't, it was a wonderful experience, but then that was the mind was not still satisfied, and the mind didn't want to end to search.
Yes.
So it kept me going and going, and only after that extreme, when you sent me to watch that videos, that I became so extreme, and I listened to that probably 15 times, and you know, and tried to divine to figure things out, and I got so exhausted from that search, and that is where the shift came in, the clarity. It is not an experience, and the mind couldn't sabotage it.
Yes. Fantastic.
And that was the change. That was the change for me. And even after that, the mind tried to say, well, that was nothing, you know, that was nothing.
Yeah.
And that is, I tried, and I mean, I somehow things opened more up, because that container that I felt, this openness that was still there, that I can go back to that.
Yes.
So, yeah.
That's wonderful. And you mentioned, when we were just having a conversation before we started, just the way there's been a process of integration for you, and it's actually happened very quickly, where there were invitations, invitations to depart this world. That was one of them.
Yes, that's true.
Could you talk about that a little bit? Because it's really good for people to realize that with realization, there can sometimes be a process of integration where, you know, we get these invitations back into individuality, and they're never ever going to stick, because once you've realized your true nature, you could never go back, because the case of mistaken identity is being recognized. But the mind does still try. So it would be, it would be helpful if you could just talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. I think that was then shortly after I had the realization. It was a week ago, very quickly, when I was a child, that I wanted to die, and that was my mantra. I still was it not long ago. I wanted to go. I want to leave that body. So that came extremely back to me, that I had that feeling. It was a feeling and in my head that I wanted to die, and it's best also to kill myself. And that was very extreme. So that came properly for 1 week. You can imagining like 24 hours a day, that this is kind of zooming around in your head. You wanted to die and maybe kill yourself. And the awareness, I can see that, okay, that was my old mantra. It's coming up more and more, but still I'm going to work, I'm driving the car, and you have that going on constantly. So that was very extreme. And I always, I felt my balance to see, okay, that is going on, and I don't have to act on that, you know. Even when I was driving the car, it's the big trucks coming and saying, why are you not driving into the truck now? You know? I mean, really, it was very extreme, you know. So here you're driving, and here it's like, kill yourself, you know. Here is the truck coming, why you're not going over? And this is like for 24 hours. And it was like, oh, I cannot take that anymore. And tried to take my Bach flowers, and it didn't help anything. It was almost like you're taking homeopathy, and then it brings something up, it spirals it up. Yes. And it was with that. And it was very challenging to be always that I see it, but I don't react on it. But you're having a conversation and it still goes on in your head. And so that was very challenging for me. And it was like probably 1 to 2 weeks. It was a really hard challenge.
Yeah.
And then it felt like it's kind of getting lower. And now I have to say, I have to think about it. I have to go back. Did I feel it? Sometimes it comes very light, especially in the mornings.
Yes.
It comes, then I can watch it. Oh, okay, that one again. So, but it's not like that. It was very extreme.
Yes.
After the seeing, after experience.
Yes, but that was quite a quick process, really, 1 to 2 weeks, and it just demonstrates how solid you were in the knowing of your true nature, because even though the mind was churning out, quite extreme thoughts, they weren't actually able to disturb you, because there's that really powerful foundation there.
But I have to say, the mind will not give up. It comes in other things, in day-to-day life.
Yes.
Things that the identification comes, and that I told you before, when I'm driving my car.
Yes.
That I'm acting in my car, that I have that, I call it road rage, that it's coming up over me, and it is so fast that
yes.
I see myself already screaming out in my car and whiffling around, and then see it, and it comes so quick out, but also then it's like, ooh, I feel into it, and then sometimes it can take 2-3 minutes. I sit there and it's like, and I can still see it, but it's going through the body, and
yes.
it doesn't feel good, and yeah. I don't like it either, but it's still coming, and it's still trying it in all kinds of situations. Yes. So it will come back and try to pull you into your story, and sometimes I am pulled into the story, and sometimes I'm up, and then okay, but then it's gone away.
Yes. Well, the way you were able to decline those invitations into, ending your life by running into a truck, that was, you demonstrated that you have that ability. So with it's just that we all have these habitual tendencies, and gradually you're kind of guided through them. So one of the things you mention is that there's a feeling which isn't particularly pleasant, which accompanies those feelings, and that's really a prompt, for you to review them and actually realize that you can engage your sovereignty, so that you don't need to play them out, and so it does become easier and easier.
That's true. I think so, yeah, but it's not. I had this before I had this idea always what enlightenment meant for me was like be in a stage where all that falls away.
Yes.
I basically don't have any attachment to anything anymore. And that might come in the future or something, but I had always this idea I'm that totally pure, untouchable being, then that, with all my bad things, they accumulated over a lifetime, they all of a sudden are gone. And here I'm living there wonderfully, and maybe can create millions because, I mean, that's also a little BS, when I hear people saying that you can create everything you want in your life, and but I had all these ideas what it meant to be enlightenment or what it meant.
Yes.
So that was so easily overlooked, and what is really awakening means. This is because the big story in the head.
Yes.
And, okay. Yeah. I still got my road rage going. I'm watching it, and I'm not having it so extreme anymore, and I can see it, and it's an interesting feeling when you sit there and you're seeing it, but also how quick it comes over to see. I mean, that's amazing. What it's like you say, and it's an energy, how quick that energy comes on.
Yes. Well, it's very early days for you, and so the foundation of the knowing of your true nature is something, you know, which provides a platform to transform the nature of your experience. So you'll find that the ability to decline those invitations, you know, into any kind of emotional disturbance become more powerful, and also your purpose for being here will be revealed to you as well, because you came here for a particular reason. It's as though, you know, you were born into a family where you didn't feel as though you belonged, and you know, everything was very extreme. You know, the onslaught you had as a child was, you know, so extreme, but actually from realization there can be the kind of revealing of your true purpose, of your dharma, and you know, that's really what's going to unfold from here for you.
Yes. So I wanted to ask you also, I know that some of the other people, I don't know, a support or something, you know, I know one lady, you introduced her to another person, they kind of live in the same town or something like that.
Yes, well, you know, one of the benefits of recording these conversations is most of the people agree to their email address being added below the video, so that you know, people can contact them if they feel resonance, and also that the people can speak with each other, because it's quite good to have that. You know, there are quite a few people I've spoken with and introduced to others, and they've been really supportive of each other, which is wonderful, really.
Yeah, I think that would be great too. Yes.
Yeah. Well, I think that you're already doing exactly what you should do. You know, the way you say that you're, you know, in your career, you're offering that level of care, you know, to people in you know, the later stages of their life, and so, you know, you're already totally on track. But it's something which, you know, can expand, and as we reclaim the energy that we've been using to have the low frequency experiences, then that energy can become available to us in terms of our life's purpose and our true potential. So, you know, the life experience becomes much more powerful.
Yeah, but I mean, I can see thing changes anyway. Right now, I see when I have little insects in the house, I cannot kill them anymore.
No,
because I know now it's God too. You know, it's somehow you cannot do it. It's so interesting. You know,
exactly.
little ants, even the little ants, I have to transport outside.
Yes.
I cannot do it, and sometimes I walk on the street and I see another person, all of a sudden I feel like, wow, it's also God, it's God. And I cry. I only look at them and I cry, you know, to feel, wow, that is God too, you know.
Yes.
It's like it's like one. And even
Exactly.
when I tried, it was so funny. I went to the store and somehow my poverty thinking came in, and I cheated on asparagus instead organic or non-organic. I said it's non-organic because it's cheaper. And then I went out of the store, and all of a sudden I felt like, oh my God, this is my poverty thinking. I should go back now and tell them what's happening, what I did. And then all of a sudden, like not a voice, but something came in. It's, don't confuse anybody with that. You know, it's for you. It's for you, you know.
Yes.
It's for you.
Yes.
So to see what it really made when I cheated on such a thing. I mean, I cheated on a big corporation, but I couldn't cheat on them anymore, you know. So even that.
Yes.
You know, so it's really, you really experience and things that was maybe normal for you, or say, okay, a little cheating, take advantage, or it's something I cannot do anymore. Somehow
Mm.
it comes right away. It will reveal right away to you what you're doing.
Yes.
It's almost it's you could never in when you walk into your true nature, you cannot harm another person. You cannot
No.
you cannot take advantage. This is you cannot.
Well, everything is oneself, so
Yeah.
there's no sense of there being another. So
Yeah.
the whole, the whole thing of realization is the subject object mode falls away, so that we see that there is only oneness, and
Yeah.
it's that simplicity then, really. And that's the transformation that's taking place, and it's becoming, much more easily available to everyone if that's what they wish to experience.
Yeah, in the day-to-day life, it reveals in every life situation, it really reveals it. It comes back to you, and so it's like a process. It's a process. It's maybe a purification process, but it's kind of unfolding more and more.
Yes. Yeah, definitely.
So I definitely can see that. Yeah.
Well, Heike, that was wonderful. Thanks so much for sharing your story and your experiences and your realization. And it's been great the way you've just articulated things so clearly, and I'm sure it'll help many people. So,
Well, thank you, David. I mean, thank you so much. I mean, from my bottom of my heart, it was you. I never had contact before with you, but it's basically that email and somehow through that whole thing that brought it all. And
good.
I mean, that's the first time I'm talking to you, and thank
Yeah,
you.
it's strange that this is our first conversation ever, but it's as though we've always known each other.
It's amazing to me, so you're doing fantastic, whatever you're doing, but only to sharing everything and make it so clear. I mean, it's wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you, David.
Well, we'll be in contact, and thanks so much. That's just really so nice. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.